and it's 3:02. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll do a roll call with names if we don't have a sign-in sheet. So I'll start. Let's see. We'll start with you, Steve, since you're big on my screen right now.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Steve Agor, Skanska, Vice President, Business Development here in California.
All right, wonderful. Good to see you. Teresa next, and then Brian.
Hi, this is Teresa Maxwell with Skanska, DBE Compliance and Outreach Manager for our Los Angeles area.
Hi, Brian Ansari and Associates.
We'll go to Cynthia, Gordon, Erica, and Ollie.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cynthia Suero-Gabler, and I'm with LA Metro DEOD.
We'll go to, okay, I forgot who was next. Was it Gordon, Erica, and Ollie, and then Sharon?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gordon Jung. I'm also at Metro DEOD.
Erica? I wonder if she's on, is she on mute?
Yes, she's on mute.
Okay. Are we unable to mute her as well, or? Erica, we can't hear you. We're unable to chat either, so I'm not sure if maybe if you are trying to get in. I don't know if there's a call-in number as well, or is it just this live stream?
We also provided a call-in number on the Eventbrite.
Oh, great. So we have a few more people. So after Erica, who's next?
Ali.
Okay.
This is Ali Altaha. How are you?
Okay. Hello. And then Sharon. Okay, people are moving around on my screen, making it a little harder. Sharon, and then Martha.
Sharon Coleman, Coleman Construction, and the National Association of Minority Contractors.
Awesome. And Martha.
Hi, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. This is Martha Valenzuela with Modern Times.
Great. Well, wonderful. All right. I think, is that everyone? Okay, let's get started. So you guys have reviewed the committee meeting notes from the last time. As these are notes, they're not minutes. We do submit them into our packet for the general TBAC meeting. So if anyone has any comments, please let Teresa know. Great. Next is the update. So there is the construction chair. There's no vice chair, but there is a construction chair, as you know. And I did speak to so there were originally 4 people who were interested in this role. 2 of them one has not responded, and the other has opted not to be involved with construction. So there are 2 people remaining that are here today vying for the construction chair role. So we can decide to, and those would be Sharon Coleman and Ali Altaha. So we can decide today to have that next month, if both of them will be in attendance, where we can vote for them, if that works for everyone. Does that work? All right. So we'll make.
Do I get a vote?
On this committee, yes. So we will move that for next month. We'll have it on the list as the nomination for the chair. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience on that. We were going to try to do it in the general meeting, where one of the other ones was attending the general meeting. And so now that we just have the 2, we can do it back here, and hopefully both of you will be in attendance next month. Next, we want to go to number 5, which is the commercially useful function overview and orientation. We have Elke on here, but I don't know if Elke is here today. And Mr. Compton, I don't see either of them.
Keith will not be joining us today. Okay. And then there's somebody on the line that just joined us. I don't know if that's Elke's number, but it is a 562 number. Can you please identify yourself?
Actually, it's Erica Strong, S3 Safety Solutions. My microphone wasn't working on my computer, so I just logged in to the phone.
Okay,
wonderful.
awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. So I know, let's see, and Rick is just joining, Rick Casillas. I don't see anyone else joining. Cynthia, are you able to connect with LP and see if she's coming? I don't remember if she had confirmed or not. And Teresa, I don't know if you knew, but are you able to send her an email real quick, you or Gordon, to see if she can come? And then we'll come back to this one if we need to.
Yes, we'll reach out to her.
All right, thank you. So we move now to old business, which is the working subcommittee updates. We did have something on retention release, and that was Sharon Coleman. Oh, did we lose?
Me and my team has had a couple of meetings. They each had a homework assignment, and unfortunately, we didn't finish the homework assignment, so we will definitely work on it. But what we wanted to do was compare what's going on with Caltrans, what's going on with LAX, what's going on with Links, because it's two different contracts. One is a P3 and one is regular. And we wanted to compare LAX, and yeah, those are the ones we were mainly concerned about. So I'm waiting on them to get back to me, and once they do, we'll have a definite next month. We should have our everything laid out.
Okay, all right, great. And then next item, let's see, this is under item 6A2, Roman numeral 2, how to broaden contract opportunities and outreach to contractors. Ollie.
I lost you for a second. Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, your committee, you were getting a committee together to how to broaden contract opportunities and outreach to contractors.
What about it?
Can you give us an update how the committee is doing?
We haven't done any work yet on that particular point.
Okay.
I believe, Brian, please correct me if I'm wrong. Was there any other request beside Brian Ansari to join that committee?
Yeah, is there anyone else who can join? We can also bring this up. These are some of the things that we're, I believe they're going to be in the minutes, and we can talk about them at the general meeting too to see if other people want to provide comments on the working committee side.
Sure, and if they need an additional person, then I definitely don't have a problem volunteering and joining the group.
All right, wonderful. Erica. So Erica Strong is your third member, Ollie.
Okay. Erica, we haven't met before. You have an email I can reach out to you, please, or I can give you my cell phone number.
It might be easier if you give your cell phone, and I can text it to you right now so that you don't misspell it.
That would be area code 510-812-5210.
812-5210.
Area code
510. Okay,
yes.
Got it. I'll send you a text right now.
All right, great. Wonderful. Thanks, Erica. I look forward to that. And then how it works, just because I think, Erica, you might be new to this as well. The working group will come back to this committee. We'll talk about the recommendations or the comments that are being made. And then if there's a recommendation that this committee decides to move forward, it will go to the general committee meeting. I mean, to the general TBAC.
Okay.
All right, great. Well, welcome. And then, which is perfect timing, Mr. Stewart. We are on your section, which is audit best practices. We have your name here. Wanted to get updated from you on how you and your committee are doing on the auditing best practices.
No, I'm going to say.
Yeah, Walter, we have some new people too. If you want to just give them a little background maybe on that one as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you having me be able to talk. Thank you, Teresa, for the email. Say up front, I failed miserably. I wasn't able to, first of all, I didn't know I was the lead, and I was expecting someone to contact me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it fell to the wayside, but I would like to have a second shot at it. I will take the lead responsibility, and I'll make sure that next month's meeting, I'll deliver a white paper to you and the team.
Okay, that sounds great. And then if anyone wants to get on the committee with Walter, please do so. And maybe, Teresa, we should add that in our notes so that when we do the general meeting, we can also bring that up as well if anyone's interested. I think the auditing piece, if you guys recall, it was really onerous for small and diverse businesses, and it's something that Metro is, they did make some changes to it where they committed to doing only one a year unless it was deemed necessary to do more. But it would be great to hear what you guys say and hear what best practices you've seen, Walter.
Just say one thing. I used to audit for United Airlines and the federal government, Navy nuclear stuff, electronics facilities, aerospace, everything, right? So one thing that the government is starting to do is to push that responsibility downstream, the suppliers, so to perform those self audits. And so what I'm thinking with this, a solution could be 85% of the audit being a self-audit, and the other, 15% or so could be administrative.
Okay. That would be great. All right. Looking forward to your report from you and your committee. Okay, now new business. We're moving along really good today. So the new business, item 7, the first one is on the discussion of construction manager, general contractor, Cmgc project delivery method for contractors. And I believe it came to us from the general meeting on how we saw this as a delivery method. I know we do have a few construction people here on the committee today, which is great. We would like to see more general contractors come on. So whatever we can do to outreach to them, please let us know so that we can try to get more of them on. Or if you have an email database that you can send our agendas out to, please send that to them as well. So I'm going to open it up for discussion and see what people think about the CMGC as a delivery method for Metro and the impact on small and diverse businesses.
Can I start?
Yeah, go right ahead.
It's probably one of the worst tools in the box. If you were in a different state, let's say Utah DOT have mastered the CMGC for a lot of reasons because they have been, number one, working with it. They know the plus and minus in administering this tool. And funny, every project that I saw in California with CMGC ended up in a claim. And the claims are in the millions, whether it's a bridge over the LA River or a Timbuktu building. So in terms of small business participation on CMGC is actually limit the participation to the bare minimum. It is one of the worst methods for inclusion. And part of the reason is because the way it has been contracted, the way the DMP is being set, and almost every can end up being renegotiated back and forth. And every time there's a renegotiation on the price, the segment that loses is the small business or the DBEs on those contracts.
Okay, so I hear you saying two things. It's limited for small and diverse businesses, so it doesn't include more inclusion. It's more exclusion from your standpoint, and it's not a good delivery method for, as you understand it, for Metro.
It's not a good method unless the agency can master the reason and what this method can actually offer. Meaning, you cannot bring in someone who can just drive a stick shift and put them on automatic and vice versa on a moment's notice. It's a completely different environment, and unless you understand exactly how it's done, it becomes a liability to both the agency and the team. Same thing with P3s on Caltron projects or design build on Caltron projects. The agency is not set up to move away from the typical specs for design bid build, and this is the same thing.
Thank you. So I'd like to open it up. I'd like to see maybe Sharon, if you have some comments on that.
I kind of agree with Ali on that, on that particular part right there. And then I also would need to do a little bit more research and talk to some of the construction managers in my organization and see what their position.
Okay. No, that would be great. And I think this is just going to be a discussion at this point, and maybe we'll continue it, but would love to hear, you know, Martha, you work with a lot of GCs as well. What are you finding? And then maybe we'll turn it over to Skanska and maybe to Rick as well. Martha? Is she muted?
Yeah, she self-muted herself, Martha.
Okay, we'll come back to Martha. Skanska would love if you guys could provide some input on your thoughts.
Yeah, I can start. We're doing quite a bit of Cmgc projects along the coast. We've had different levels of success. I agree with Ollie that it really depends on the owner and the owner's knowledge and ability to use that procurement method. If an owner thinks it's some kind of silver bullet and they get to walk away from the job type of thing, it won't be successful. If they're very much engaged, especially when they have a high level of knowledge of what they want or what their expectations are at the end of the day, then it's a very collaborative, good tool to use. I think we've exceeded all of our goals on outreach and participation, so I'm not sure I completely agree with Ollie's perspective on percentages and what's met or not met. I think the bigger difference is, and what a lot of people don't understand, is the original RFP that comes out is really for pre-con services. And that's when the design is really only like 10 or 30% design. And then the contractor, and that's the CM part of the job, if you will, works with the designer and the owner to develop the project. And when you're doing that, we, as a general contractor, really only have 3 or 4 people on the job full time, co-located with the designer and the owner, working through different issues and challenges of the project. And then at certain milestones, we then use our folks in our home offices to do estimating, some engineering to figure out the job, and really drive the project to have, meet the goals and objectives of the owner, right? So to get to the end, you're not surprised on bid day whether the prices come in over the engineer's estimate or the project RFP or bid documents that come out from a hard bid give you a schedule that's not really attainable, right? So you work through all those issues in the pre-con. So from a collaborative standpoint, we really like it. But what's understood is that there's typically very little scope for any firm outside of the GC, not whether it's small business or women business, minority business, any firm, because there's the scope of services is really limited to figuring out how you're going to build the job. So then that's where the percentages and the money spent on outreach to small businesses don't necessarily typically match up with a typical contract. Okay. But then as you get into at the final negotiations of a GMP, that's when we're going out, doing our outreach, getting our proposals, getting our estimates, and putting the numbers together. And at that point in time, when you're going to construction, that's when you're going to meet or exceed any and all project goals that the owner has for a particular project. Okay. And so that's the big misconception.
No, thank you, Steve. So I'll go now to Rick, because Rick, I know you are involved with Merriweather and Williams on the contracting side. Have you gotten any input from some of your the members that come through your program, others that you know that look at CMGC?
Not too much. We're just basically trying to assist them and counsel them towards what's needed, to really position themselves just to be ready to from a certification side, from a PQual side, from whatever the case may be. That's really what we mostly concentrate on. And then we just kind of steer them towards, the pre-bids and listening in on making sure they have all the information they need in order to, prepare proper bids. But then more importantly, they can listen and say, yeah, this may not be something that we're ready for, or yes, maybe we'll be a subcontractor and we really want to get in touch with the other GCs or the primes that are working on it. That's kind of where we would help position our folks towards. And then later on down the line, if they're going to be bidding and they're going to be responding, that's where we do have someone on staff, Robert Lowry, who can just kind of review bids and kind of help them that way. And like Steve was saying, make sure they're positioned correctly to meet the needs, and everything is understood, that they understand everything what's needed. That's kind of the position we take.
Okay, so no one has really said, oh, I really hate that delivery method, or I do like that delivery method. You haven't heard anything like that?
No, not too much. Nobody has really said too much about that. They're okay with that part of it. We've had a couple of our folks that have gone through and actually been awarded, so they're figuring it out, and it seems to be working for them, but not to that point.
Okay, I see a raised hand, but I want to make sure we get everyone have an opportunity to speak. And then Brian, I don't know if you, okay, Martha has her hand raised, but Brian, did we introduce you in the beginning too? Did I get you to say hello?
I did introduce myself, but I'm happy to do it again.
Yeah, would love your thoughts about that, about the CMGC method, and then we'll go to Ollie with Martha's hand is down. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
I'm Brian Ansari, Brian Ansari and Associates. I think the tool is only as good as how it's written. If you're designing the procurement in a way that is, structuring the scope so that you can optimize participation, then you're going to get a better outcome. If you're kind of, I guess, aggregating a scope in categories that, are not clear, then it makes it more difficult for MWs to see what the opportunities might be. I'd be, frankly, more interested in seeing if Metro did an analysis of the areas of participation on the project when it was over, or even what kind of utilization reports they got to see what services were actually deployed on the utilization plan, and whether those services represent and what kind of patterns are showing up from project to project, and seeing whether you have an institutionalization of certain services and never any progression, because the spirit and intent of the program is to allow firms to have a ladder as opposed to kind of being stuck in purgatory.
Yeah.
So if you have basically firms kind of all below a certain level of participation, or constantly in the same areas, then there's a need for modification of either additional capacity, or how the scope is written, and what how the expectations are being expressed for the participation of DBEs or MBEs on the project, because I think that is as important. Because if you're looking at with things that are happening in New York right now, they're actually putting in something called a quantitative factor for the RFQ, and in that RFQ, they're asking for the firms that are submitted to be shortlisted to transparently show how they're going to engage minority women-owned firms in the project upfront in the RFQ, and that's actually being evaluated to determine who's going to be shortlisted and who's not. So it's not just an RFP conversation; it's an RFQ conversation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Wonderful. Thanks, Brian. So I want to go to Martha. You had your hand raised. Are you able to unmute? Okay, we have two hand raised. We'll come back to you. I want to see if anyone who hasn't spoken yet would like to speak before I call on those who have their hand raised, who have spoken. So Erica or Walter.
Hi, this is Walter. Our construction companies, do they have mentorship programs? Is that I know that Skanska do. I actually went through Skanska's, but Are there other firms that they all participate that way? Question.
Metro does have, Cynthia, and you can correct me, I think it's at 25 million and above is the threshold that they institute what is called their comp, which includes a mentor protege program.
Yes, and actually Gordon is the king of comp.
Oh,
So.
king of comp. Gordon, please enlighten us on comp, please.
I wouldn't say I'm the king of comp, but I do look at comps almost all day, every day. But yes, Sinead, you're right. So currently, we have a contracting outreach and mentoring plan, or comp for short. So these are reserved for contracts that are 25 million and over. So essentially, the program pairs up subcontractors with the prime to just learn stuff from each other. The prime would be in the mentor role, and they would select certified subcontractors as their protege, and they'll work together to figure out what needs to be taught, what doesn't, and these things could range from stuff like writing proposal letters, working on their accounting, trade specific things. And the prime will also submit reports to Metro periodically to detail what they've done with the proteges throughout their relationship. Well, it looks like Sinead dropped off.
Is there any credit or compensation provided for participation in the program, or what is the incentive that primes have to use it?
Well, there's no compensation for it, but it's a contractual requirement. So whether the prime wants to do it or not, it's part of the contract, so they must do it.
And that would be for the delivery method of a CMGC as well?
Well, I can't speak specifically to that, but for now, I know that management is revising some language concerning comp. But for now, contracts 25 million and over will have comp.
Okay.
That's part of the contractual requirement.
All right, thank you. And then we have a question. So if there's no one else who has a comment, we'll go back to Ollie, who has a comment.
Actually,
I yield to Ali.
It's okay, Brian. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, is there any evaluations of performance, or even cumulative assessments of the success of the program, and identifying best practices, or even primes that have been more successful in kind of taking that knowledge that's been accumulated and then using it to refine the program, and even provide training and support to the primes and or the MWEs that are participating?
Well, this program is still fairly new, so we do have data on who's been successful in the program, who's finished the program, who hasn't yet. But in terms of actually long-term data, we don't have that yet.
When you say new, what does that mean? 1 year, 5 years?
If I recall correctly, I think it's been in effect for 3 or 4 years now.
That's long-term data.
No, these comps they last for I'd say the mentor protege relationships go for around 3 years. Most of the contracts that have comp in it, since they're 25 million and up, they span for somewhere around 6 to 7 years long. So for example, like the Purple Line projects right now, all of them have comp in it, and they're going for like almost a decade.
All right. Thank you, Gordon. We want to go to our hand raised, and if we have other questions for Gordon, we can do that too. But we'll go to Ali and then to Steve.
So I've got 2 points, one for Gordon, but I want to address the first issue with the inclusion on the CMGC. I want to stress again, a contractor, when they bid on a job, on a CMGC job, they go in and they submit the bid, they submit their team, including the DBEs, as part of the initial phase. Once they start negotiating with the client, and the client doesn't like the price, it doesn't like the estimate, doesn't like the GMP, they require them to bring it down. Once they bring it down, the very first portion of that team that goes away is the DBEs. Does anybody want specific names on the LA River? Does anybody need a specific DBE names that were kicked out of the team? Because that was not addressed there, and this is why it's so dangerous. You walk in, you give them your best price, you give them your best interest, and you're the first one who leaves the job. So that's number one. This is why it's not very popular. Number two, I've never met a lawyer in my life that likes CMGC in California. And I can name a few of them in LA that have the same, they share the same feeling. The third point is LA Metro, up until 2 years ago, if you brought in the word CMGC as a delivery method, they will shoot you down. Right now, they are in orders to bring it in just to try it. That trial will fail, no doubt in my mind. The second subject I want to touch with Gordon regarding the comp and the mentor protege. Part of the reason why this program have failed is because we're not understanding what the DBEs need. And unfortunately, some folks at Metro who came up with this program, you know, they came in from the point, hey, how many comps can we sign? How many comps can we include? And so forth. And we put that in our tally and we send it to the FTA every 3 months and tell them how much work we've been doing helping DBEs. The reality, Gordon, and I will tell you this from a firsthand experience, once you sign the mentor protege, it becomes a theoretical show, nothing more, nothing less. And I'll tell you why. There's nothing a small firm can actually learn from a larger firm when they're doing a small portion of the contract. And if you're talking about accounting, I manage contracts where on my team I had large firms, and I've never had an issue with the smaller firms' accounting system, but I've always had it with the bigger firms because they keep changing their staff, and every new staff that comes in doesn't know what the previous one have done. So what I'd like to suggest to you is let's leave the song and dance games for a minute, because if you really want to help small firms, you don't need a mentor protege. You need to create opportunities for them. The second part of the problem, when you're creating this participation, you need to differentiate between companies that are licensed to do what they do and companies that are coming in as pass-throughs and fronts for others.
All right, thank you, Ali. You know, our discussion now is on CMGC, so I'd like to keep our comments on that one if we could. I know that the comp was brought up before. If we need to have that as an action item, let's discuss that and add it if we need to. So we've spent about 20 minutes on this, and I want to move on to the next one. It's a lot of good information, but I do think we want to get some more input from GCs out there. If we could, and I know Sharon did Sharon get back on? I know she got dropped. Oh, and Steve, sorry, Steve, I forgot your hand was raised. Yes, go ahead, Steve.
No problem. And one other, other than GCs, and we can give you a list of quite a few that have done work, not only here in California, but to Ollie's point, Utah, where it's much more mature procurement method. They kind of have gone through the growing pains and figured things out a little bit more. But Ray Schritt runs the program for Caltrans out of the Sacramento office. He's a great asset. He loves speaking about alternative delivery. That's his job at Caltrans. He's done a lot of research with what other organizations are doing across the country to create Caltrans program. The CMGC for Caltrans started off with 6 pilot projects. Let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, 6 pilot projects. And after that, he was to do an autopsy of how things went, so good and bad, and lessons learned. and I am sure small business participation is a major factor of his evaluation. So I think out of the 6, 4 of them are complete, and a couple of them are still a little bit longer projects. But one of them we're working on is North Coast and San Diego. It's got several packages, and many of the packages are done, even though the overall project's not done. So you'd probably get good data from him on those packages as well, and probably help answer some of the questions that are probably a little bit more mature in formulating information and data than a single project from a single agency like LA.
Okay. No, that's a great idea, Steve. Thank you so much. So are you suggesting then for this committee that maybe we have him, invite him to come and talk to us about the results from that? Would he be open to that, you think?
He'd be very open to that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if somebody who was, somebody on this committee was trying to pull together a single answer, just reach out to him and have a conversation with him. And I'm sure he'd be more than happy to not only have a conversation, but send data.
Okay, great. So that is a good point. Thank you. So on this one, do we want to, because we spent now a good amount of time on this one, do we want to move this into like a working committee to look at this one? Sharon, I almost feel like this kind of falls in with what you're doing on retention as well as delivery methods. Do you want to try to take this on with your committee and maybe have that conversation?
I'll take that. We'll take it up in our committee. We'll have a discussion about it and see.
Okay.
But I also like Steve's idea of seeing if we can get the gentleman to come and speak on a whole.
Okay, would you like to have him come here, or would you like to have your committee talk to him and then bring that data back to us?
That's a good idea. I'll talk to Steve first and see see what he's open to.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Steve, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Awesome. This is the committee, but the hope is that we have these working committees outside of the working committee to get a lot of the work done, bring it back here so that we can move forward. All right, so we'll add Sharon onto that one. Thank you, Sharon. And please do reach out to your members as well. I think the CMGC delivery method has posed some problems for small and diverse businesses from what some people have been saying on here, and then just making sure that the agency is really doing it in a way to maximize that. So if you could really look at that with him and with other members that you encounter. And Rick, I would ask you too, with some of your contractors that you're working with, if you wouldn't mind just asking them, how are you on any of those kinds of delivery methods? Are you on any CMGC contracts?
Yes, absolutely. I will.
Okay. All right, great. So I'd like to move forward on this one. Ollie, I would like to move forward. Do you have a quick comment?
Very quick.
Go ahead.
One example that just came in my mind is the San Francisco MTA Venice BRT project, federally funded CMGC, and anybody can look up the case of Synergy, how their $17 million contract was actually terminated and replaced. Eventually, they hired someone else to do the work at $30 million. And that company the owner of that company is facing federal jail right now. So you got to keep your eyes open how CMGC really works in that real environment.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let's move on to item B, 7B. Metro proposal to award time. This is a big one, and part of it is because Metro. Just to give you some background, we understand that a lot of these projects that Metro is trying to procure are moving out 180 days plus. And so Metro is currently sitting on some without awarding them, and they're looking to make those decisions. Do they award them, or do they cancel it? And I think a lot of small and diverse businesses were involved in some of those pursuits. So I'd love to get people's opinions and thoughts on, the amount of time it takes to award things at Metro currently, and even before COVID. I think it still extended for a period of time. And what are some things that Metro could do to assure the small and diverse business community on those communications. And then the second part of that is on these contracts that are not currently being awarded that are going out past 180 days, what should Metro do with that? Should they cancel them? Should they award them, but know that you're not going to get any work for a year or so? So I'd love to open it up to members of the committee. And okay, we have Ollie raising your hand. So if anyone else would like to comment on this, maybe if you want to raise your hand here and I can call you here. Because of the timing now, well, we actually have a good time. But I'm going to ask if we could limit our comments to about 2.5 minutes. And Ollie, go ahead.
So the first thing you want to see regarding this case, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why contracts have been delayed beyond the 180 days. Some of it is the way the process works at VCM, which is awkward at best. And the other part is when you submit a bid and it's 6 months old, if it's professional services, you might not even have the staff that you proposed on the original proposal. With the environment that we're living in right now, there's no guarantee you even have them. And that applies for both small and large companies. The fact that just because the company is large, it doesn't mean that they can retain their staff and put them on the bench waiting for an agency to make a decision. The second part here is the fact that we're dealing with the COVID-19, it is affecting the revenue that is generated, and that is affecting the budget that, for example, Metro is dealing with. The official number of $1.82 billion, that's just an official number. The actual number is much, much higher. Next year will be even worse. They will be lucky if they can maintain bucket one the way it is right now. What I'm concerned about is that there's a lot of projects in procurement that has been withheld, but yet they are canceling contracts that are in place that are very essential contracts. So how do you justify a team that is already doing a good work on a Metro project, on an essential project, and then they're taking them out, and then you're replacing them, for example, with real estate appraisal, something that, it's not an essential service, but yet as we speak today, there's a proposal out for this type of services. So these are the things that TBAC need to address with Metro management. Let them give a priorities to some of the contracts, some of the small firms that have been simply wiped off by, canceling their contracts on a moment's notice while they are advertising, in my humble opinion, some projects that can wait.
Thank you. Do we have some other comments on this one? Okay, it says an unexpected error has occurred. I'm not sure what that is. Do we have any other comments about this one? Is anyone else experiencing these long delays in your communities or in your organizations? Is this an issue?
Can I ask you, maybe tangential, but when it comes to payment, I mean, I know you're talking about the RFPs, and but is payment typically go in a 30 to 60 day period, or does it linger beyond that? Is it like into 60, 90 days before vendors are getting paid on Metro projects?
Are you talking about in terms of, this is to award it before it's even awarded?
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. And we can talk about prompt payment later if we need to, but it's just not. On this one, are there any issues? Is everyone okay? Is it just kind of business as usual now that it's going to take longer than 180 days? Ollie brought up a point that, you may not have the same staff that you started with 180 days later, or 90 days, 120 days later. So I'd love to get some other comments. Ollie, I see your hand raised, but I'd love to get some other people to provide any comments.
I would say, given the degree that DBEs are looking to get work and to get cash flow to be able to stay in business, that would be a serious problem because you're going to spend substantial resources to get on the project, and take your time, and and now you're waiting for a notice of proceed, or a notification that you've been selected 180 days. You could be out of business.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. And so then what is the solution that we're offering? And I'll go to Steve, and then maybe, let's see, I've got some hands raised. Steve, and then I'll go to Ollie. If we could keep our comments to 2.5 minutes. And Steve, I'll start with you.
Right, and I agree with what Brian just said. That's the tough one. I think what we would like to see as an industry is for Metro to understand, to Ollie's point, their priorities, get those set, understand their finances, and not release an RFP until they know they can actually follow through with it and execute the contract. Now, once you're in the middle and something happens to the economy, that's a different story, right? But we're talking about the initial award. So sometimes I don't think Metro really appreciates how much time and money and people, our resources are spent to do a proposal and put forth that effort and go to interviews. And they kind of just take it for granted that, well, that's just part of doing business. That's just part of your overhead. But at the end of the day, as a company, it doesn't matter whether you're small or large, you have limited resources on overhead or you go out of business, right? So, we as a company then have to make a decision. Do we submit on this proposal for Metro, or do we submit on something for somebody else if we're afraid the Metro contract's not going to ever get executed, or it's going to take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and another one's going to go forward in 30 days? That's a business decision that we're all forced to make within industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Ollie.
So just want to add a couple more things. And again, I think it's a misunderstanding of how the industry work and how Metro think we work. Right before COVID, I had a meeting with one of the board members, and I was surprised that that person actually knew that it costs up to $50,000 for an average proposal to be prepared. The fact is this, it does not, let me put it this way. Let's compare Metro to other public agencies. Let's take the Port of LA. The way they write their RFP, hey, give me 10 pages, no more than that, put your resumes in, straight to the point, who you are, what's your approach, and who you're providing, how do you provide the services. 10 pages. In my previous life, when I worked for public agencies, I can tell you, no one on a selection panel read the proposal page to page. We always go through the important sections of it, the org chart, the key staff, the project approach. Everything else is irrelevant, and nobody have the time to read 10 proposals, and every one of them is 500 pages. It's just impossible. And even if you do, there's no way you can retain the information and the evaluation and put it on a piece of paper. So the biggest benefit and the biggest advice that you can give Metro to get out of their own track is for VCM to reform themselves, reform the way they issue RFPs. The RFP itself, when you read it, is convoluted. There's sections that will not work with the other sections. And you get RFIs, as much as 300 RFIs to clarify some of the language they put in, because nobody reads it, even when they issue it. And same thing has to apply for the proposals. Limit the proposals to a minimum, let's say 20 pages, 25 pages, that's all you need. And when you do that, you have the time, you don't need 6 months to review. Lower the cost, gets the message across easier and better.
All right, thank you, Ali. So we have.
Are you willing to make that recommendation?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, are you willing to make that recommendation?
If the committee wants to make a recommendation, we can look at that, and then we can make the. I do think this 180 days and even somewhere around that is onerous for small and diverse businesses. If the committee thinks that this is something we want to move forward with the recommendation, we can get that together. There's a form, as you know, if you want to lead that up, but let's hear what else. We have a couple other people who have some comments, and then we can look at this if that's something we definitely want to do. Absolutely. So again, I'm going to, I think next was Brian, and then I'm going to go to Erica. So Brian.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know of any jurisdiction where 180 days is standard, frankly.
Brian,
and you know,
so sorry. New York DEP takes 3 years.
what did you say, Ali?
I'm sorry. I said New York DEP takes 3 years. And that's the first-hand experience.
Well, you know what? I don't know that they're taking DEP. They're taking that long now, but my point is that 6 months is an I mean, just to become kind of a SOP is extremely burdensome and represents a significant hurdle for businesses to proceed. So I think, you know, going back to what Steve said with respect to you know, the timing and execution of the RFPs and making sure that, you know, funds are encumbered and they have all the pieces in place is you know, is appropriate. Whether it makes sense to kind of proffer this as a recommendation is another story, because, you know, I mean, I think it's something that's worth noting, but I guess part of it is do they see TBAC as crying wolf? Or do they see it as a strategic asset in helping them to really kind of get some feedback on their operating processes and procedures? If it's something that they take seriously, then it's something that's worth looking at more carefully, because, you know, you're giving them market feedback to understand the consequences of the decisions that they're making.
Yeah, so that was a good question, Brian, and I will go now to Erica in a minute. But before I do, I'll just say that, you know, TBAC is there if we do have recommendations, and this committee has one that we think is we want to move forward. We just need to have that form filled out. We need to lead it. Have that form filled out with the recommendations that we approve. And once this committee approves it, we take it to the general body. The general body. If I can just ask everyone to be on mute if you're not speaking. Hey, Cynthia, can you mute everyone? Thank you. We take it to the general body, and if the general body then moves that forward, it goes to the board and it goes to Metro to consider, and then they need to respond to us. So I think that is a viable thing if this committee thinks so. I'm gonna move it to Erica, and then we'll go back to the earlier question about this. Oh, and then Sharon. So Erica and then Sharon. Go ahead, Erica.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in and kind of agree with some of the things that were said, that when you get to talking about, you know, 180 days lead time to even know if you got a project, and you're utilizing, you know, as a small business, it might be, you know, 2 or 3 employees. So you're utilizing your resources to bid this. Not only when you have situations like when you take COVID, for instance, it basically, if we would have bid on a project just before COVID happened, and then you're saying, like, you know, 6 months down the line, our pricing is going to definitely change for 6 months down the line, because now for something like COVID, we need to take into account PPE, longer hours, this, that, or the other. So I just think that when it comes to a long range plan of these smaller businesses, and they're trying to get in and operate like bigger businesses and plan those 18 months out of what their projects are and what their finances are going to be, I think that it just would be a little bit cumbersome for them to have to wait 6 months to even know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm going to go to, before I go to Sharon, I will let you know, TBAC has asked each committee, so commodities is also supposed to be looking at this, although their numbers sometimes are a little bit lower, and also professional services is also looking at this. I think there's enough of an urgent thing that we need to really have our voice be part of the suggested outcomes or solutions. So I'll go now to Sharon Coleman.
So I agree, Erica. Yeah, 6 months is a very long time if you have bid a project and you have your team together. In 6 months, anything can change. And so I think we need to figure out a better way to a solution than a better solution than waiting 180 days. That's what
Yeah.
What that solution is right now, I don't know, but I guess once all the committees come back, maybe those committees we will get a suggestion out of that we can move forward as a team.
Yeah. No, that's great. And Brian, you brought up a good point on this one. Would you like to lead this one?
What does leadership look like? Actually, canvassing the people for the individuals to determine levels of interest and then completing the form?
Yeah.
Sure, that's fine. As long
Great.
as I have everyone's contact information.
Yep. Absolutely. So anyone who's interested in being involved on that piece, I think this is pretty paramount, and I think that we need to get a response to Metro pretty quickly. So, Brian, why don't you want to send your email out to everybody?
Yes, I don't have everyone's email, but I'll be happy to do it.
Yeah, if you want to share your email to all of us here, and then whoever wants to get involved on this one to help you with that recommendation paper.
That's fine. Should I just state it?
Yeah.
Should I state? Okay, it's Brian, BRIAN, at B, letter B, ANSARI solutions.com. That's Brian at bansari-solutions.com.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Brian. And then if there's something that you need in addition, just let me know. One of the things that was brought up earlier, we are I'll move now to the item C, but before I do that, going back to this thing with this commercially useful function that Elke will be coming to speak to us on. Brian, you mentioned something very interesting earlier about how is this delivery method compared in the utilization versus another delivery method. So this may be something, I don't know if Metro has this information currently, but it might be something we can ask of them to see if they can provide it. It may not come at our next meeting, but I think that's something, Teresa, that maybe we should ask of Elke if we're going to have her come, to also include this. Of course, the cuff is important, but also to let us know, based on delivery methods, how have the companies performed and how have the utilization of minority and small businesses been in play. Is that kind of what you were saying, Brian? I want to make sure I get that right.
Yes, I was looking for trending data and analytics around activity. I think, frankly, if you don't have any analytics around what you're doing, you don't know whether you're doing well, you don't know your impact, you can't see the cost benefit. I mean, you just don't have visibility into what is a good idea but may need to be tweaked, or if it's a bad idea, you validate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Numbers don't lie until they do. So thank you for that. All right, so we will go now to item C, best practices for trucking service providers on Metro projects. And this was something I think was brought up before. Teresa, do you want to give us a little highlight on this one?
Yeah, we actually had, I think, 2 trucking firms that participated. They attended one of our meetings, and some of the concerns, it was just a public comment, and we said we'd have to put it on the agenda. But I do remember some of the kind of bigger concerns that they had were things like having to submit different documentation on different Metro projects. So I guess not seeing a lot of the same thing being flowed down to them, I think, was in general what the discussion was. And so we had said, well, let's talk about the best practices. And I do know Elke is working on trucking, and there is actually next week a Metro DEOD, I think it's on the 26th. There is going to be a trucking event, which I won't be able to attend. I don't know if anyone on the call is interested, but trucking, is very important, especially on these tunneling projects. There is a lot of opportunities for small, owner operators. They just own one truck. Mm-hmm. A majority of them do come from, underprivileged areas. So it's a great opportunity for people who, you know, they can't start their own business with an office, but they are really great at, you know, doing everything they can out of their truck cab. So I'm not sure if anyone else on this call is as interested as I am on trucking best practices. I spend a lot of my time on this. So yeah, that's kind of some of the background.
Yeah, no, that's great. Does anyone have any comments on that one? I think we have, okay, let's see. Sharon Coleman and then Ali Altaha. Sharon, did you have some comments on the trucking?
Oh, no, I didn't just take my hand down.
Okay, all right. Ali, are your comments on the trucking?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm looking at a letter that was submitted to Metro regarding potential fraud in the trucking business, and specifically how some of those companies that are getting the work on the mega projects are getting away with low prices, and the way they do the low prices is by just spending. So I don't know if anybody who is dealing with the large contracts and the trucking services can comment on this credible claim of fraud in the trucking business.
Well, I think what we're looking at are the best practices. So I guess the best practice is.
I'm sorry, fraud DBE and addressing the fraud in the DBE business or in the trucking is best practices.
Yeah, so.
And this is a letter that was sent to Metro. So it's not, you know, something that I made up.
So that I understand, you're saying.
I am just wondering if anybody want to comment on it, because it seems like to be a case that has been going on for a while. So
okay.
No comment.
So that I understand, so what you're asking the committee, you're saying that one of the best practices is not to commit fraud on trucking, is not to commit fraud on any of these kinds of services that you provide. I think that's really an issue.
Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think that's a standard thing, that people don't want to commit fraud on any type of service that they're committing or that they're doing or having.
The question is, regardless of the paperwork that is being submitted, I'm wondering why is this paperwork that is being submitted by those fraudulent DBEs are not being followed and are not being reviewed or investigated?
That's something that I think you would have to take up with Metro DEOD. So if you're saying that they're taking away, are they taking away from small and diverse businesses?
Absolutely. The company that is being affected is an African-American trucking company. It's a legitimate company, and they can't get the work because someone else is sliding them. And someone else is allowing it to happen. So this is not only good practice, but it's part of our responsibility to address this issue. And you can't slide and go and ask Metro to do it because
so it sounds like there's an issue. Is it just in trucking? Are we finding that fraud is just happening in the trucking services? I want to make sure that
you're breaking up. One more time, please.
I want to make sure. Oh, I've got some hands raised. Let me go to some hands first. Let's see. Sharon Coleman.
Can you repeat?
Yes, I'm with Ali. I got wind of some complaints. I've been hearing some complaints about how some of the larger firms are doing some fraud to fly under the radar. So it is happening. I just didn't know who. I'm like Ali. Who do we report it to in order to try and help some of the smaller mom and pops, like owner operators, like Teresa was talking about, to benefit them, because basically what you're doing is not allowing them to have that opportunity.
Right. So
Sharon, I can tell you unequivocally, I'm looking at the letter myself right now as we speak. It has been filed. No one has done anything about it. And the victim is a legitimate trucking company, a minority trucking company. Fortunately, in this business that we're in, hey, if you find ways to bend the rules, they'll actually clap for you. And the victims are still here.
Okay, so
what
it's a big time.
what I would suggest here, first of all, what I would suggest here, since we have, let's say, 1, 2 large contractors on this committee, I don't know if they have any comment on this specific case.
Well, why would we ask them to talk about a specific case?
Do you care to comment, Steve and Teresa?
I don't, wait a minute, no, we're not going to ask them that. We're not going to ask one particular contractor to comment on a case. Are you saying in general, if there are certain things that we're seeing that there's fraud going on with trucking, with large primes, then let's address that. But let's not
No, I'm asking for we have a large contractor on this committee. They're giving us their advice, their experience. Great. I'm asking, how would you handle this case?
How would they handle fraud on the case? I don't think. Well, then
how would you handle it, Teresa?
Well, don't, Teresa. Hold on. So, Ali, again. Listen, we started out great, so let's keep it that way. Let's refer, I didn't mention the code of conduct in the beginning, so if I have to mention it again, I will, but let's go. On here. So let's see, they have Walter Stewart. Go ahead.
Hi there. I was just listening to the dialogue, and so I just wanted to follow up on Ali's question. To you, is there a LA Metro complaint system for, for DBEs or some other entity to, address some of their overall contract compliance issues?
Yeah, there is. So there is the DOD. There is the DOD you can go to. So if you would like, there is the DOD. You can go and make your complaint with them if you feel that you have been if it's not been aligned with you. TBAC is here. So one of the things that is hard for small and diverse businesses is to bring it forward at TBAC themselves, not their representative. But if they're interested in bringing something forward, we can have the conversation and we can bring it forward. A lot of small and diverse businesses are not going to opt that way. And I think they might feel better if they go through DOD. If they do have an issue, they can bring it to us and say, we would like you to help us with DOD. We can do that as well. I think that is what TBAC is here for, to help advise but we are not, we're advisory. And I think that's one of the things we need to know, that we are not an ombudsman, although we do sometimes try to take on that role. And we're not here to represent any one individual. We're here to represent our collective community. So DOD is one. If we have an issue, Ali, if you know someone who's had an issue and you want to go through DOD, we can definitely do that. If they would like to come here to this committee and talk to us about it, we could figure out what we can do collectively and to see about bringing them forward.
I think Walter was asking me, so it would be appropriate that I answer him. So Walter, your question is absolutely correct. The way you're asking it, the reality of the matter is the individuals that have covered up this particular case and many, many other cases are the same one this chair is pushing you to. So my humble suggestion to you, if you encounter this, and we've all have encountered it, and thank you, Sharon, for confirming this, you cannot have a fox protecting the hen house. We're the hen house and the fox is eating us one by one. So those complaints right now, as we speak, are being addressed in an environment that is completely separate from LA Metro and the DOD that has been the party line that we just heard from the chair. Because they have never done anything about it for the last 15 years.
All right, thank you both. So let's move now to our last one on here. So on this best practices for trucking, you know what, I want to go back to what I really heard Teresa say, which I liked, is that a small business can get into business with just one truck, right, as owner operator. So I would really like this committee to really spend some time thinking about how can we elevate and bring more opportunities for these small and diverse one truck operators. How do we get them to know about this? And that, I think, would help a lot of small businesses that are looking to get started in this. But how long is that process, Teresa, for them to get licensed and all of that to have their owner operator truck?
There is a big upfront cost. They can lease the trucks, but they're pretty expensive. But there are programs out there to help them, and I think it's once they get their paperwork in there, and I'd like to hear what Martha has to say as well. I know she's Modern Times has helped them too, but I think they have the same process to get DBE certified that you have done, where they go online, fill it out, provide. Most of them that I know that have worked on our projects are sole proprietors, so they have to give their bank statements and everything because they don't have financials.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll take them a few months. Okay. But yeah,
I like that. Martha, I see your hand raised. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I was having issues with my speaker earlier, so I apologize for that. But yes, so we actually created a database for purposes of one-to-one tracking of trucking, specifically on the Midcoast Transit Constructors Project. And there is what's called the trucking, like a mentorship protege for the trucking program. So essentially, the owner will identify, a trucking broker for mentoring of smaller firms that maybe just have one truck and are trying to build up. So the same idea with the mentorship protege, but specifically for trucking. And we do a lot as it relates to ensuring that we minimize the level of fraud and ensuring that we're working directly with the DBE truckers. We essentially perform a cuff with the trucking program a little bit even more often than typical annual cuff reviews. We look at their trucking logs, we look at monthly truck tickets, we look at the employees that are actually driving the truck, ensuring that they're truly employed by the owner who owns the truck and it's not shared employees or any potential reasonings or issues that would violate cuff requirements. And like I said, the DBE trucking mentor protege is extremely helpful as well for helping some of those truckers that are new or starting out. And then there's also, of course, the same idea with like a trucking bench and then supportive services that we offer as well. So there's a lot of potential there for some of these firms that are either leasing a truck or trying to save up to buy a truck. There's opportunity there. But of course, fraud is a real thing. And so we take that very seriously on our end on that project and ensuring that we're constantly tracking and logging every truck ticket that comes in. So it's a lot of work, but it's extremely worth it to ensuring that the firms that are truly getting the work as trucking companies meet the requirements for that.
Yeah, I really like the way that that's framed. When we talk about these best practices, like understanding fraud happens probably in every sector, every industry, and every product and service potentially. But knowing what you're doing to help prevent that is really helpful. One of the questions, Walter, that you brought up before is really like if someone, I want to pose a question, like if someone has a business and they defraud the government of taxes, who is the person that needs to be responsible for that, right? Isn't that between the government and that person? Or should a third party come in and play in that too? Because they're like, you've taken money away from my kids to go to school because you didn't pay your taxes. So who is the right person for that? Should it be the government that goes after them?
Well, it's not only I'm sorry, Walter. It's not only the government. It is actually the agency itself and the consultants that are working for the agency that are under contract to review, or even the staff to review the commercial useful function and how these fraudulent firms have been able to get in. And I'll give you a simple example. How do you account for a commercial useful function for a DBE firm where the owner or the wife or the daughter or none of them is licensed by the state of California as a contractor, yet they're engaged in construction on a mega project. That's a real story. So who reviewed their paperwork and who reviewed their tags and who reviewed everything that they've submitted? And as we speak today, and for the last 4 years, they're still engaged in construction and some other activities without a single state license.
So my question, Walter,
it failed because of the agency that allowed it to continue.
All right, thank you.
And the way it is handled right now, and it has to be a third party that it gets involved, and they are involved, and they're cleaning it up one by one.
Okay, thank you, Walter. Were you answering my question to you from your question to me, or did you have other comments?
I really don't, but I think maybe we should revisit this. I think it's valid. It's a lot of there's a lot. It seems pretty intense topic, and how to tackle it if you think so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Did I see another hand raised? All right, we've got, thank you, more discussion on this one, I think. It'd be great to get those truck providers in here, Teresa.
Yeah, I think I can get hopefully at least 2. We have I think Metro, let me ask Mimi, because they're hosting that event next week. Maybe she could mention about the TBAC meeting for November. That might be the best way to catch their attention.
And how is that?
If Metro, at the meeting they're going to host next week, I think it's on the 26th, if they could mention the construction committee is going to have this topic next month.
That would be great. I think that's a great idea. So we'll make that one of our other actions as well.
Yeah. I can email Mimi and Olga and ask them if they could, maybe at the introduction or at the end, maybe just let everyone know.
I would love it would be great if they could come. And then again, if anyone does have an issue, they need to bring it to me so we can agendize it and we can have it brought forward. But I really like going forward on best practices on how we can help these businesses that are legitimate businesses. I think that's what we're all here to do. The last one on our item here, item under number 7D, is SBE, DBE pass-through companies. So this was brought up, I think, at one of our sessions. So I don't remember who brought this up. Let's see.
I did.
Ollie, okay, do you want to, again, I'm going to limit, we have a few minutes, so I'm going to limit comments to 2.5 minutes. Go ahead, Ollie.
So it's the same issue again. The whole issue here is companies that should not be in this business, that are taking business from legitimate firms that cannot get the work. So you want to take it from a civil rights point of view, you want to take it from best practices. It's all connected. And there's a huge failure by the agency to address this issue. Now, if someone brings it up to your attention, you're going to take it back to the same people who already received it to begin with, and they haven't done anything about it. So that's not a best practice. You're just shoving the basket from one hand to another. I think I shared with you the new drafted specs for the I-5 and the upcoming projects that have never been done before. It's clear, it's an issue, it's a challenge, it's an epidemic, and need to stop. And if you want to stop it, you stop it with the clients that you work with the agents, with the other companies that have been claiming to be a DBE without a commercial useful function, without a license, and acting as a front. We see them every day. It's not a secret.
Okay, thank you for that. So my question is, so if Metro, isn't that Metro's role and job to do that? They're the ones who go through, they do the investigations, and they make their confirmations and decisions, and they decide on who is a DOD, who is doing a commercially useful function as well. It sounds like some other firms do that too, like Modern Times, but isn't that their role and responsibility?
That is their role and the responsibility, but they have failed miserably in doing their due diligence in this matter.
Okay.
And I think I shared with you one case where money talks, and if someone pays someone, I mean, that document, I did not create it. So.
Okay. You know, I think one of the things that I would like Metro to do is for them to be able to defend what they have done or not done. You know, I understood that they have been under investigation before and they do things properly and they come up with their decision. So I'm going to invite someone from Metro DOD to come and speak on this, but I'm not going to spend a whole hour and a half debating back and forth with them about what they did wrong and what they did right. I would like them to come and maybe share with us. It sounds like the committee would be interested in having them share with them their process to put this to rest. And again, if there are situations, if someone has a situation and they want to bring it forward, we can look at that if that's something that they want to do. Most firms do not want to go through that process, and they want to go through, you know, a process like a DOD. So is that something, I know I haven't spoken for 3 minutes, hold on. Is that something that we would like to see, maybe have Metro DOD come and talk about their processes?
Shanae, again, these cases have been going on for years. It's nothing new that just popped up. If you want to make a recommendation, ask the primes to do their due diligence and make sure that they do have a licensed contractor doing the work and not someone who has an office within a yard of a larger company. I mean, it's obvious. All you have to do is drive through the yard and you'll see a large company with a little shack for a small DBE. I've done it. I see it. They couldn't see it.
So then it comes to
so obvious. You don't need to even investigate it. All you have to do is drive by it. Look at the signs. Look at the sign of the large company. Look at the sign of the smaller company. Now, what they are doing, and the reason why they're doing, because they're cheaper. So they're taking. If Brian was a licensed contractor and he had to pay for his insurance, for his license, and for and the bond and everything, and someone comes in from the street and says, "I can do it for half price," that's what's going on. They're making money out of your back. So if you want to do something, don't go back to the same people who created the problem. You got to go to others that can actually solve the problem. That's what you're missing.
No, I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm hearing you say that the primes need to be held accountable, but they're not the ones who are giving the certifications, as I understand it.
300%. And all you have to do is go back to the case in New York City when 3 contractors were fined anywhere between $23 million and $19.2 million. I'm not going to bring their name. They know who they are. And it's public record. And it's going on a much larger scale in LA. Thank you.
All right, so it's now 4:25. I really like, you know, I think the part that we missed is we missed that commercial useful function with Elke, which I really want to make sure she comes, Teresa, and does talk about the transportation. We've got a few actions. We've got a few people who we've given some actions to, and looking forward to that. I did hear someone say that they would like to see Metro DOD. Are we all opposed to Metro DOD coming and talking to us about this, or are we wanting them to come and talk to us about this?
You can bring them in. They're just going to have to answer some serious questions as to their conduct. It's very simple.
Is there another person? Thank you, Ali.
Documents came in from their office. I'm not bringing those documents up. And Steve, if you need, you don't need to take notes. I can give you the whole recording right now.
Okay, Ali, is there someone? Okay, so I see that Ali's on here. Is there anyone else that would like to have Metro DOD come?
Problem. If you need to solve this problem, and if you need to address it, you got to take it from its root. And you get to eliminate it.
Okay, is there anyone, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to see Metro DOD come? Walter, see your hand is raised. Go ahead, Walter.
I would like to see them come. And like you were saying, just kind of hear some of their best practices, kind of see what their process is. And, you know, we know that the people who would be invited are not in a position to litigate their previous actions. And so if they can come in that spirit and, you know, so they can come back, we want them to be able to come back.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about their processes, right? And if they're doing their processes, they're doing their process. We want to understand that. So, all right, we'll ask them to also come. And then
Yes,
I think, oh, sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Cynthia, and Keith and Elke send their apologies. They were actually unable to make it today, but they would like to participate next month and give that presentation.
Oh, wonderful. Great. So that's perfect. So we'll have them come. And we're also going to invite, I think, maybe Miguel as well to come, who is over DOD. That might be great to have. He may have more insight on more of the processes that they follow as well. All right. Going now to item 8, non-agenda public comment. Anyone have any public comments? Please raise your hand. Okay. Hearing none. I don't believe it. I think the first time in history it did. Oh, never mind. Sharon has her hand raised. Go ahead, Sharon.
Was just going to say we had a really good meeting, and seems like we're going to end on time. So that's wonderful, and we covered it.
It's wonderful. Yes, I agree, except for the cuff, but I think next month we'll have it. Do we want to keep it for the hour and a half then?
I think it works out better, the hour and a half.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep it. So tomorrow we do have an EBO and I. We are looking at the emerging business one, and we have some great topics that we're covering there. Teresa, I don't know if you have those handy. If we could talk about those real quick.
Yeah, I just want to make mention while I pull up EBO and I. The next meeting is November 18th. So please put it in your calendars because it's the third Wednesday of every month. So November 18th, 3 to 4:30. And you just want to know what the topics are?
Yeah, for EBO and I, that's coming up tomorrow.
Yes, I've got it. Agenda right here. Jack also confirmed he'll be there to talk about the 88 cities again. I think he presented it and he was going to write it up. So he missed the last meeting. That he'll be there. And we have some committee recommendations that we're going over. And that's it, really.
Okay, great. Can you share just with the committee here what the committee recommendations are, or the high level?
Yeah, there was 2 from the legislative committee. One was prime contractor SBE goals and potential penalties for not meeting their contractual obligations. I think that one was that one finalized and sent to the general committee?
I don't remember. I thought there were some more edits, but that was one. Yeah, I don't remember.
And then the second topic William had, it's not, I don't have it handy, sorry.
Okay. So those are some of the topics that we are doing in EBO and I, and it went to EBO and I because it covers more than just construction. It also covers professional services, but there is also impact to construction. So we ask all of you to please attend that meeting. That is tomorrow. I don't remember the time, but Cynthia has all that information if you want to get that from Cynthia or from Teresa. Cynthia, what's your email? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's a Suero, S-U-E-R-O, Gabler, G-A-B-L-E-R, and then the letter C at metro.net.
All right, wonderful. Please send your interest in attending tomorrow. We would love to have you. We have great conversations there as well. And we'll see you tomorrow for hopefully the EBO and I committee. All right, thank you everyone. It's 4:31. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.